एक मिनट रुको
मुझे लग रहा है I'm
So,
hoping nobody
we
rings
are
the bell.
live. Hello friends, I Haimanti Bagchi, project lead for the story project 10 by www.tellmeyourstory.biz. Welcome you to the third episode of the Devi series. I'm privileged to have with us Vish, Dhamija, Richa and Anirban Bhattacharyya this evening, and we are going to discuss Satya, the revelation of truth with reference to crime stories. Here we shall discuss the new released crime stories, the characters, the plots, and the divine intervention in the revelation of truth. The topic of divine revelation has been long-standing and central focus in philosophical discussions, has been deep-rooted in our culture and our discussions over morality. Sometimes the revelations are manifested, whereas some revelations are non-manifestational. In short, our mortal life revolves around a paradoxical dialectic of simultaneous veiling and unveiling of what we call truth. Tell Me Your Story calls for submission on the story prompt Devi. Let me begin with introducing our panelists this evening. Vish Dhamija is a British Indian crime fiction writer. According to the Indian press, he is India's best page turner and one of the 10 most popular Indian thriller authors. He is the only writer of Indian origin listed among the major legal thrillers author of the world. He is also known for his psychological thrillers. In August 2015, at the release of his first legal fiction and his third novel, Deja Karma, Glimpse magazine called him India's John Grisham for stimulating the genre of legal fiction in India, which was almost non-existent before his arrival on the scene. In a survey by eBooks India website, Vish Dhamija was listed along the top 51 Indian authors who you must follow. The Asian Age and the Times of India have cited him as the only legal fiction writer in India. His latest book is Cold Justice, which is a legal thriller. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
My next panelist is Richa S. Mukherjee, who is a Mumbai-based award-winning writer, ex-journalist, and advertising professional. She is the author of I Didn't Expect to Be Expecting, a candid take on accidental pregnancy, and Kanpur Khufia Private Limited, a humorous thriller, and Excess Baggage have both been procured for the screen adaptations. The Curse of Kuldhara, Part 2 of Kanpur Khufia series, is her fourth book. She has been a TOI Write India winner, is a blogger and travel writer, and contributes to several platforms such as Women's Web, Mom's Presso, and She the People TV. She is a Shiro's champ and blog chatter and Cool Kanya mentor. She has authored e-singles, anthologies, and audiobooks. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
And my next panelist is Anirban Bhattacharyya, who is a best-selling author, television producer, stand-up comedian, actor, and director. He began his career with TV18 and has worked with Channel V, Live 4K, MTV India, and Walt Disney Company. His latest book is India's Money Heist, The Chelembra Bank Robbery, was published by Penguin India, and the book is about one of India's biggest bank robberies, Chelembra Bank Robbery, which took place in Malappuram district in Kerala. We welcome you, sir.
Yay! Glad to be here.
So all three of you have recently released your books of crime fiction. I humbly invite you all to introduce the books to our viewers before I probe further. It will be nice if you specifically include the women characters in your introduction and tell us their relevance.
Richa, you go first.
Hey.
Of course.
Hey, that
Ladies
was so
first.
Bangali.
That
That was such a Bangali thing to do. Hey.
Eh? Acha, I forgot both of you are Bengali. Sorry.
I was feeling left.
Your voice is gone.
left out. I was
And she has.
Nay, Haimanti, you don't have to be so humble. We are always very keen on showing our books. So a drop of a hat and we'll show it. So yeah.
हाँ हम तो सारे दिन
Sure,
में
go for it.
So my latest book is called Curse of Kuldhara, and it is the second installment in the Kanpur Khufia Private Limited series. It is a story of the entire series is based on focused on this intrepid detective called Prachand Tripathi.
आपकी आवाज चली गई.
He is big dreams, and he embarks on multiple adventures with his wife, who he absolutely cannot do without. Her name is Vidya Tripathi, and along with her, this once he has moved out of these quaint little gullies of Gwaltoli, and he's made his way to the mysterious ruins of Kuldhara, and that is where the next adventure unfolds. Where there's a movie set, murder and mayhem and some paranormal beings waiting for him. And that's what his wife. So, because you mentioned the women characters, Haimanti, when I was pitching this book right in the beginning, when the first Kanpur Khufia Private Limited book came out, I was asked by my publishers why I repeatedly interject Vidya into the proceedings when she's a sub character and she doesn't necessarily belong with the protagonist, who's Prachand Tripathi. And for me, she was such an integral part of who he is in terms of what he does and his work. She's the CFO, and it's almost as if whatever shortcomings each other have, it's a very yin and yang kind of situation. So they complement each other, and they're very entwined in the way I've written them. And this is the way the whole character was envisioned. And books, even the similar case with the Kanpur Khufia Private Limited, but I haven't ever exactly had this express intention of setting out my characters and saying, look, I need to make a point with this lady here, she needs to be strong in saying this and that. It is a very natural consequence of me being a woman and having experienced what I have, grown up with the people around me, and the opinions that have formed, that there is a very erroneous assumption about the kind of women we imagine that have the privilege of speaking their minds and being free and doing what they want. What I have seen are strong women who, very much like the characters in my book, which include Vidya Tripathi, who is typically she's supposed to be in this very traditional setup, but she manages to do whatever she wants. And the oldest member, the doyen of the household, is an 87-year-old woman who pretty much holds the reins of the household in her hand. So typically, this is a very traditional structure. But each of these women are eking out their pieces of freedom, the way through across stratas of society and age groups. And this is pretty much what I have seen. There is no ready formula or ready context when it comes to freedom and strong women. It has to happen in every phase of life and every sphere of life, and you have to do it irrespective of where you are and who you are. So that is something that is integral to all the women characters. And yes, it was very enjoyable writing them. And yes, they play a very, very important part in all my stories, including Curse of Kuldhara.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So, Anirban sir, you can go forward.
Please don't call me sir.
Okay, Anirban, you can go forward.
You can call me Anirban, you can call me AB. That's fine. So these are the two books that I've written so far on crime. One is called The Deadly Dozen, India's notorious serial killers, most notorious serial killers, and of course the new one, which is called India's Money Heist, based on the Chilembra bank robbery. The India's Money Heist, I've been wanting to write for the past 10 years. I'd wanted to, since I created a television show called Savdhan India in 2012. So that was, of course, I was fortunate that the show became one of the most popular crime shows on television. So when I created that show, I wanted to tell the story of the Chilembra bank robbery, but I just couldn't get enough material or research. So, of course, in 2020 is when I finally made contact with the investigation team that cracked the case. And over the next 2 years, I wrote the book, and then here it is now. Um, I think the out of the four people who comprise the thieves in the book, so to speak, one of them is a woman, and she plays a very very important role in the book, is because she is one of the one she's the one who actually manipulates a lot of the goings on and makes the heist possible, the back end, right? She's a married woman. She has children. She looks after her ailing father. She has an extramarital affair with one of the other thieves, but she's the one who's the most educated of the lot. And so a lot of the banking work, a lot of the fraudulent transactions, and all of that fall back on her. She's also very ambitious. She's a local party worker, so to say. In the politics, not the party, but the cadres. Yeah. So she works there, and so she has lots of influence. So she plays a lot of she has lots of tricks up her sleeve, so to say. So she's very very important to the plot. In my first book is where I actually looked at women and found out that, as Shakespeare has said, the women can truly be more dangerous than the men, because the most sinister, the most diabolical serial killers of India, there are women. And it is shocking. One sort of imagines, the mother figure, or the one, the giver, the sustainer, the caretaker. All of that goes out of the window when it comes to these serial killers, and they are mastermind criminals. So they are, some of them are even more diabolical than the men. So yeah.
Well, there's an old saying, Anirban and Richa and Haimanti, that once made equal to man, the woman becomes his superior.
Mm.
It's an age old. So basically, for generations, I guess the only reason men behaved the way they did is because they could kind of, in a group, put the women down, and we have survived as mankind, not humankind, is by playing them down so that they don't become our equals. And time has come where we are where we are, and life is. And I was actually, both of you, I was chatting to a friend, and this has nothing to do with the book, and he says, how long are we supposed to give this way for women? He says, and I told him, 1000 saal to abhi baithe raho. Okay, because for 1000 years we've done this, so might as well wait and see what happens. And fair enough, and I have been on the receiving end as a man for twice now, and I understand how women might, seriously, the only reason men do not feel that they have been granted privileges for no reason at all is because they never face the other side. So I stop here. Once you are on the receiving end, it's only when you get subjected to, because of your gender or sex, that you realize that yes, it could have been happening the other way around. But as long as it's working for you, you don't seem to realize it at all.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we take our lives. I mean, as men, we take our lives for granted.
Oh, yeah.
And just as an aside, it's so courageous of the Iranian women who are now standing up and trying to break the 1,000-year-old shackles of misogyny and control and all of that. So yeah.
My book. My
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I have a habit of so my book is Cold Justice. It's coming a bit mirror image, but that's fine. It is about, so when I finished writing Unlawful Justice, this is in the same series. One of the big, it's fictional, unlike Anirban, it's me and Richa are the same. I decided that the protagonist had showed interest in the then sitting judge, who was a woman. And as luck would have had it, they fell in love and fell out of love. And the story begins 3 years after they've been in love, had an affair, and moved out. And she is the protagonist in the book, and she is accused of a murder in a crime, and she's caught in situ with the murder weapon in her hand. And Akash, her paramour or the lover, goes to kind of defend her in the court, and the prosecution also has one of the best prosecutors in land, and he kind of plays tricks all within the law, legally speaking, and throws him out. And he is now brought in as a witness instead of the lawyer. And that's the rule of the law, that if you can either be a witness or a defense. You can't be a defense advocate who's called for a witness by the prosecution. So yeah, it's a story of a woman who is accused of murder, and the affair that kind of the lover or the man in her life goes to protect her and stumbles there. So that's called justice, and I believe it's a legal thriller. So which is as you said, is one of the only kind. So I would urge people to buy it and read it. Both of you too, but that's fine.
I have my autographed copy.
Wow, that's great. So, Anirban, in an
Yes.
incident mentioned in your book, there are Malayalam dialogues. As it is based in Kerala, and the book is extremely well researched, and whether we talk about the investigative procedures, criminal psychology, historical tidbits that pop up throughout the book. Please tell us about the process of your research and the challenges you faced during the revelation of facts and the little nuances of the crime.
When I so this book was written completely in the pandemic, right? The heights of pandemic, and I couldn't visit Kerala. So the entire investigation team used to come on Zoom. So at times there used to be 12 officers, inspectors. Now, of course, who were constables then are now senior police inspectors now. So it used to be completely full. Once a week we used to meet, discuss. I used to give them homework to go back to. This case happened 2007, 2008. So a lot of the details they have forgotten, right? And you've seen the kind of research the book entailed. So I wanted to know what color shirt that guy was wearing, right? So you can hide your shirt. So देखिए यही है वो जो टर्कोइज कलर के शर्ट पहन के बैठे हुए. तो मैं कलर मुझे टर्कोइज बोलना अच्छा लगता है. अच्छा. So anyway, so then I used to discuss with them, and because turquoise dark hota hai. हाँ जी. So we used to discuss that, and over a period of 6 months is what we researched, and then I started writing the book. One of the biggest challenges, of course, was trying to capture the language and of course the culture. So I'll tell you one incident. Is you read the book, right? So there is one turning point in the story where a certain clue is found, and then I was talking to this person, and I said, how was it when you finally discovered, you made this breakthrough? Now this gentleman doesn't speak English and doesn't speak Hindi, he only speaks Malayalam, and I was alone with him on that Zoom call, right? So I thought ki with our broken English we will, manage. Right? So I told him, Anwar, how was it? How did you feel? So I said, okay, sir. So I said, no. So see, this is a huge discovery at the point in the story. This is what triggers the final chase. How was it? Did you say Eureka? Were you happy? Were you shouting and jumping at 3 in the morning? It was good, sir. And I was trying to get reaction from him, and that flopped. So I got in a translator whose name is Sept, who really helped me sort of, through the legal documents and all of that, because those were in Malayalam as well. So I told Sept, I said, Sept, अब तू translate कर, ठीक है? तो मैंने फिर से वो सवाल किया. What did you feel like? So, and then Saif turned to this man and then he asked the question in Malayalam. Okay. So this man replied, spoke for about 45 seconds. Okay. So I said, "Ha, Saif. So what did he say?" He said, "It was good." I said, "No, no, no, you're not getting it, dude. He spoke for 45 seconds. I want each and every sentence of what he spoke." So these were the kind of challenges one was facing. Language being one, culture being the other, details to recall those details was the other big challenge. Because I write true crime, I can't muck about with facts. I can't bullshit. I can't afford to. If I write something, Hanji,
आप कहना क्या चाह रहे हो?
कहना नहीं वो कह रहे लीप ऑफ इमेजिनेशन मैं नहीं ले सकता भाई.
You बोलो ना आप.
हाँ तो वो है तो because I don't want readers 2 years down the line to say अरे यार इसने तो इधर कुछ गलत बोल दिया. So research is the key for me. So that was a big challenge to get it all down.
So don't take it my humor to heart, and all credo, because I don't think I can write non-fiction. So salute.
Thank you. No, I know you, Vish Dhamija. You're a brother from my another mother, so it's
Yes, brother from another.
so, yeah. And as for the language you mentioned Malayalam. In my first book, Deadly Dozen, there are dialogues in 9 Indian languages. Because I want the reader to say those language. I want the reader to read and say those dialogues so that it immerses the reader into that environment. Right? So there's even in this, there's a Malayalam full of Malayalam punch dialogues and all of that. Of course, it's all explained in brackets, but I like doing that. Is to give you that the local flavor. Yeah, it really helps.
That's
No, it
really
really does. And
interesting.
I remember reading the book, and I remember reading all those different, the Deadly Dozen, all the stories, and each of them had a different flavor. And I think a lot of it had to do with the language and the
The
nuances.
region, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I always tell people when I grow up, I want to be like Anirban.
I love you too.
So Richa, cutting this, sorry if I've
No, go ahead.
cut it in between. Yeah. So Richa, the curse of Kuldhara gives a very rustic feel to the small towns and the village vibe. Also, the colloquial words and the eerie descriptions of the village of Kuldhara. Creative writing for fiction turns out this visual when you immerse yourself into the plot and the character's mind. So what was your experience while you were creatively immersed in the revelation of the plot and the intricacies of the characters?
I'm very much like my co-panelists. I like to take a sidestep all the time. So because Anirban just mentioned about the research and speaking with people and getting, reactions that you want from respondents, it took me back to my advertising days where we used to go to these quiet housewives for, control groups and show them an ad and, so much money and effort and kaisa hai? And the standard response would be, acha hai.
Yeah.
But a little more, a bit more. So yeah, I can understand the pain. So yes, coming back to the question, I seem to have a penchant for punishment, Haimanti, because incidentally, the genre I've chosen to write these thrillers in is comedic thrillers, and here I'm taking two contrasting emotions, where one is trying to create unease and fear, and the other one is a relief. So finding the correct balance and writing a story which is immersive and is thrilling, yet is providing that kind of relief was a challenge. In addition to that. I have liberally used colloquial terms, so much so that I had a worried call from the publisher saying, English book hai? Yeah, do you want to just retain all these? Do you want to just halve them? So, it was a call and I had to work on them. But somehow I felt that if I wanted to stay authentic, and I'm not just saying that you randomly substitute it, it has to be a judicious choice. And if you feel that that flavor can only be imparted in that language for that particular expression, so I used that filter, but I stood my ground, and I'm glad I did, because a lot of people have connected to the book in this way, and the characters well, they got their happiness because the I mean, I guess the glossary was added, but which is fine for me as long as I could retain the words. And the third challenge, I guess, was I was nervous about the fact that I was beginning to write a franchise without a clear, roadmap of where I was going. Because typically the way it's done is if you're writing, these sequels, then you're supposed to have some clarity about what purpose, which direction the first one is taking the second, because it needs to fit into a picture and, there's a logical progression. But here I was again biting my nails, figuring out, moving from Gwaltoli to Kuldhara. And in addition to all of these challenges, I just thought this was the first time I'm writing about Kuldhara, and this will be my, first book where I just get to immerse myself in the environment and the people and everything. And then a very immersive pandemic happened, and all plans. I had booked myself into a Haveli and Jaisalmer and locals
Wow.
and walking groups. Sab ho chuka tha. And then unfortunately, I found myself sitting in my room, huffing and puffing. So ho
You
gaya.
तो आप वहां भी
None
लिख
of that
सकते थे
worked.
घूम के जाके. You could have written it in Jaisalmer. Don't say कि you sacrificed your holiday for us. I'm not taking
हाँ?
that as आप
नहीं
जैसलमेर में
नहीं, हमको जाने को कहीं मिला
कहानी
ही
बना रहे हो
नहीं.
आप. एक और कहानी बना रहे हो यहाँ बैठे बैठे. जैसलमेर
कहानी
की
बनाना, वही तो काम है.
ऐसे
So
हम पे
anyway,
लगा रहे हैं कि हमारे लिए किया. देखो कितना कितना sacrifice किया दीदी ने.
please, you sat in thanda thanda and wrote. I sat in this one room with all my family outside and me being a sweaty, angry hound. So anyway, so wo challenge tha. So what I did was, obviously, to the rescue came a whole bunch of people, and this, the online world is really vilified for various reasons. But during the pandemic, it was a savior as far as writers were concerned as well, because through Google Earth, through conversations, with people I knew, through a lot of books that I picked up, the local folklore and the stories, and that again, I was, that literature I was introduced to with the friends I knew who I was going to stay with. I found a relative who was in forensics in London, and he doesn't want to speak to me anymore because I was on call with him every alternate day. And that's why I had to write a huge note of thanks to him in the acknowledgement. And then there was some doctor. So all of this was happening on calls and on the laptop. So I can't say it was a very immersive experience, but I think that is the quality that all writers have to draw on. They are empaths in every single way. And it's easy for us to I can't say how easy, but it's easier, I guess, than most other people for us to transport ourselves and just consume and hang on to every single word that we get from people, things we hear, and put it all together, amalgamate it into a story. So that is how the book happened, and I'm just glad that it has received feedback from even people who have been to Kuldhara, and I have been authentic in my representation, and I didn't get a call saying that it seems like you just saw a picture and wrote a book. So, and as far as the characters are concerned, like I was saying, my concern was that as you progress in a series, no matter how much you love the characters, you can't, indulge yourself and hold on to all of them. But there were such cute characters. It just felt as if I was meeting my family again and I had to leave behind my daughter or my grandmother or something like that. So I chose to hold on to 3, 4 of those characters. Amma ji, the uncle who wants to, be on a film set, Prachand Tripathi, his wife. So I took a whole barrage of characters to Kuldhara, but I think that is what has continued to make it interesting and make it comedic and thrillic in its own way in Kuldhara as well. So that is the integral element. So it was fun. It was challenging, but it was fun.
Thank you for the letter of appreciation you sent to London. I acknowledge it. मैंने तब जवाब नहीं दिया था लेकिन अब दे देता हूँ. क्या फर्क पड़ता है क्या?
I think that was amazing. But did you visit Kuldhara after that?
Believe it or not, abhi bhi nahi, but I swear, this always happens to me.
Oh.
So I will now go and make a special trip and maybe make it a solo trip and go and visit and live in those Havelis and check whether my fact check was right or not.
It's somewhere in Uttar Pradesh, right?
Kya?
I assume Kuldhara is in Uttar Pradesh.
No, it's about
Rajasthan,
40, it's about 25 kilometers from Jaisalmer.
अरे क्या बोलो राजस्थान हम राजस्थानी. What are you? Okay, I didn't
Vish
know.
sir, my next question is to you. So there's a constant need to add a surprise element, to add thrill, a dash of suspense and mystery when we talk about a page turner like Cold Justice. How challenging is it to maintain this drama with twists and turns while you were writing? What was your writing process like?
So I have a very simple writing process, unless some of the other authors I meet, and we've had this discussion on various panels where I've been contradicted, and everyone has their own plan or whatever, and I'm open to discussion on this. I invest a lot of time in characters, and I think characterization is very and extremely important for any story. And I can give you an example of a film that came out in India before you were born. You were born, called Sholay in 1975. I can guarantee two of you were not even born. And the pride of that story is actually not in the story, it's in the characterization. Because you still not only remember Basanti, you remember Dhanno, who was Basanti's horse. And that is how you need to invest into characters to take the story forward. Long after the story is forgotten, is the characters that people remember. And that is a trick. It's not actually a trick. I'm just saying it as a trick for lack of a better word, because आज मैंने word नहीं खेला है. So it's if you invest in the characters, the reason I'm saying is people start believing in what the character does, even though it's fiction. Now, if you've seen Money Heist, which not Money Heist, Asab Ka, but the Money Heist Spanish where they get into the bank, I don't know if you've seen it. You know that what they're showing is almost impossible, because they build the character, that professor or doctor jo wo hai main lead, in such a way that you start imagining that if he's holding the reins, everything is possible. Same for James Bond. The character has been etched in stone in our mind and hearts, that whatever James Bond does, however improbable, looks possible. So it's that's how I create the characters. And Cold Justice is no different. You have someone, the lady who's been accused of a crime, she's a sitting judge. Now, a sitting judge is very powerful in any context, in any part of the planet. And for her to be accused of a crime, no less murder, you have to start believing in what she could have possibly done. And the story goes very towards the till the end, where the audience or the reader is supposed to believe that there is no turnaround in this case, because even the best defense lawyer has been kind of raided and brought down to his place, and you can't win this case. And that's the whole story about. It's about characters. Once you build the characters, it's the characters that tell the story. And that is what I've always believed, and I will still believe, despite some of my own contemporaries and my peers saying characterization is just yeah, theek hai, bana diya, kya hai, kahani likho. And I totally believe in it, and I will stay true to it, because it has been reasonably for me successful for me. So I think I will stick to it. So I think that's how. And everything else, once you have those strong characters leading the story, everything else is background noise. So the story also, I'm not saying story is background, but story also becomes kind of second drift. The location, everything. I normally base my stories, unlike Richa and him, in Bombay and Delhi, because those are the cities I know well. I do take a sway into smaller towns of Jaipur and Jmeer, which I've been brought up in, but largely I stay to big cities, and I also explain the cities and the whole flavor of the city, which is sound, sense, smell, and everything. But I strongly believe in characterization, and that's how Cold Justice runs. That's how most of my stories run, on the shoulders of the characters that I draw, and that's why I cannot, even if I want to. And I was on with some people who asked me to write mythology. I can't, because I can't, for the love of God, I cannot expect Arjun to now walk out and start driving cars and start shooting guns. Arjun in Mahabharata is a character itself. You cannot make him do anything else. You can't make Draupadi do anything else. I want my characters to do what I want them to do. So that's how I base my story. I don't know if I made sense.
No, as Vish, I mean, characterization is so important. Even when it comes to writing true crime, I have to like delve into their psychology to give you an insight of the character. Like again, taking off from Sholay, one of my favorite analogies of characters and Sholay is that Gabbar Singh does not appear in the movie till about 37 minutes of the film, but you've got some 60 references to Gabbar before that. गब्बर ने ये किया, गब्बर वो ऐसा था, गब्बर वो करता है, गब्बर ऐसा करेगा, गब्बर होता तो ये, गब्बर 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 गब्बर. So you build up, build up, build up, build up till at 37 minutes you have Gabbar's entry. Now the Sippis were very when they met Gabbar Singh, they were very very apprehensive about his voice, because his voice is not a deep baritone, it was a thin kitne aadmi the, that kind of a thing. And Danny was supposed to play the villain, but Danny went off to play
Danny was the second choice.
Yeah,
Danny was the second choice. First was Pran.
First was Pran. Then of course Danny was there, went off to do Khote Sikke. And here was Amjad Khan making his debut, thin voice, but Javed Akhtar and Salim Javed, and they knew, characterization, right? So for 37 minutes, they just built this devil, and so when he appears in that low angle shot, walking across the rocks, you're already petrified. Now it's also another thing, and it's also another surprising thing, that Gabbar Singh became a lovable character for kids. So much so, he was selling biscuits to children. He just became this lovable Gabbar Singh character. So, yeah, and so characterization is so important.
I have a question for all the panelists here. Gabbar Singh ke baap ka naam kya tha?
Hari Singh.
Thank you. He says it just once.
Once. Vald Hari Singh. ये देखो तुम हमसे ना देखो, तुम शोले का सवाल ना किया.
I was concentrating on the biscuits. I said, imagine, so jao, Gabbar aa jayega, so jao, biscuit aake dega.
And the way that character has been played, they try to remake Sholay, and it's so badly flopped, you wouldn't know it. Ram Gopal Verma ki Aag, where Bachchan plays Gabbar ka Jabban or whatever.
वो उसी आग में झुलस गया, poor thing.
So talking of characters, we see a lot of narrowing down of gender categories in crime fiction also. The female characters were mostly coy and played the role of a victim. Sometimes she needed a protector, and in some occurrences, the narrator would justify the noble reasons for her disobedience to the conservative patriarchal morality. There were very few women detectives or women officers traditionally. The representation, however, is evolving for good. How do you perceive the evolving female characters in contemporary crime fiction or non-fiction? This question is for all of you.
Didi, aap bolo.
Didi has just been appointed as the first bencher.
I can answer that. So when I wrote Bhendi Bazaar, it was kind of that I'm talking about 8-9 years back. Yes, there were very few women detectives. And my reason for making a character like Rita Ferreira, which has been picked for screen, wasn't, I do not think in terms of man and woman. I think in terms of which character will most suitably play that role. And one of the reasons I wanted Rita Ferreira was after I decided on the villain. So in all probability, in Bhendi Bazaar, the villain or the negative antagonist or negative character could have walked away with the entire glory. Glory, when I say, it's all the infamy, if you didn't have a strong character balancing it. And when I started drawing that character, it just drew into Rita Ferreira. And one of the reasons why you do not see too many women in crime fiction, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because if you look at the jails or the prisons all around the world, I wouldn't know the number, but 80% of them would be men criminals. So criminals, when it comes to criminals, it is more men than women. I'm not saying women don't commit crimes. I'm not saying women don't get caught. I'm not saying women don't get imprisoned. But largely, crime is kind of criminals. Male have a more criminal mentality, if you will, and therefore to counter and what we in fiction show is kind of a slice of real world. So if you went out to a police station, you would see very few female police officers. You would see very few female criminals, and at the end of it, art is a slice of life. Life is a slice of art. So I'm not saying it's not balanced, but I hope it stays unbalanced. You don't want too many women criminals at all. You don't want men criminals at all. Actually, you don't want crime at all. But so be it. I might be wrong, but Richa and Anirban will, my two superiors will tell me how wrong I am. Always.
No, so if I
Richa,
may, as a woman, referring to all the incidents that we were speaking of earlier, on a daily basis, it is I have I'm okay with the fact that I'm raging against or about something or the other all the time, because it's very unfortunate and it's very debilitating and distressing that we are still fighting and talking about basic rights on a daily basis, even now. But I personally feel that whenever you're looking back and analyzing something, it's important to be dispassionate and be a little moderate. Otherwise, we lose our objectivity. So to answer your question, I was just thinking about it, that authors in my head. I had this workshop that I did for my bring your parent through Zoom to a school day, and I was just talking to kids, and in a very simplistic fashion I was telling them that authors are timekeepers, right? Basically we gather whatever is around us in our context and environment, and we gather all of that and we put that down through interesting stories and facts on paper. Now if you look back, it we've already discussed quite a bit about how women have always had been at the receiving end as far as means of expression, rights, place in society, in the home, everywhere. So all these are known facts which I don't want to talk about right now. But it was not just women. This was just the portrayal and accepted image of women in society at the time. And what tends to happen with writers is that everybody is not a revolutionary writer, right? You assimilate what is happening around you, and that is pretty much what you're writing about. So in a sense it wasn't just women, there were many community. There were, if you talk about various people of sexual or various sexual orientations. If you talk about race, it wasn't just gender. There were all of these communities which were being written about in a very strange and unacceptable way. So now there's been a lot of debates in the last couple of years that look at all these greats, whether it's children's literature or crime fiction or any other kind of literature. The way women have been written about, and many communities have been written about, is highly objectionable, and it wouldn't pass muster in our current times. So it is always, writers are always influenced by what is happening around. Like I've had these major debates with my father about dekhiye Ramayan mein kya representation hai, and then he sat and told me, he said, we all know that what is the lens with which Valmiki wrote it and what is the lens with which Tulsidas ji wrote it. And we all know that it was in his pursuit of showing him and showcasing him as a Maryada Purushottam, he forgot about women, he forgot about everything, and he says very strange things. So he said it is for you to extract what is important and according to you, and leave the rest behind. So that is something that needs to be kept in mind when we talk about the portrayal of women. Then over the years, I'd like to think that there were enough women writers, and this changed over a period of time. I think at some point women decided that sorry to use unparliamentary language, but screw what people think of me and how I'm supposed to write or what I'm supposed to say. They unshackled themselves, and they just said, let me write what I want to. And I think this what was the lady's name, Shelley, the lady who wrote Frankenstein. I
Mary
mean, that
Shelley.
was
Mary
revolutionary at
Shelley.
that. Yes, I mean, that was revolutionary at that kind of literature. A woman writing in those times, right? And it was a thriller in every way, every which way. And then I think, with this courage and, more readers, and with the market opening up, there are more and more people who wrote. Agatha Christie came down the line. I think there were a lot of women characters, detectives as well. I mean, my earliest memory of a women detective is Nancy Drew, before
Oh,
anything else. And
very
those
good.
kids suits. So वो भी है. Then if you talk about Agatha Christie, उनके तो सारे, I mean, including Miss Marple and God knows how many she had. And there was this really cranky old woman called Mrs. Highfield or somebody I remember, who was this 57-year-old woman from high society, and she used to roam around in her car smoking cigarettes and solving crime. So I mean, there have been a lot of experimental people who've broken out of the mold and they've written. And then there were more. Anne Cleves as well, Ruth Rendell. She wrote about that entire Professor Wexford series. So I mean, I guess with the passage of time, with I guess people writing more, people reading more, and things changing in society again, that somehow, I mean, it's not that women writers, I was asked even now that why is it that I'm choosing to not write chick
Romanch.
lit
Romanch.
and not. हाँ वही तो मतलब, if you're writing, वो किसी डिटफेस्ट में किसी गधे ने पूछा था, he said अरे चिकलेट क्यों नहीं लिखती हो ऐसे, अरे जो मन करेगा वो लिखेंगे ना, आपका क्या जा रहा है. So the whole point is you still get those inane questions even now, but the fact is I think we've learned not to care as much. And with the and with that comes more interesting characterization, and comes because women have murder. If there's one section of society who has murder on their minds on any given portion of the day, whether it's for
Eh?
the milkmen or the children or the
Yeah.
husbands or whatever, it's women. It's just that it doesn't get channelized. So
दूर रहे बेटा.
yeah.
Mumbai में इंडिया.
हाँ,
No,
so
I totally support, because there aren't enough women crime writers. India में तो और भी कम है. So totally hats off, Richa, hats off. Seriously, hats off.
no, and I feel very happy that there's a whole bunch of them now in the last 10-15 years. If you see Sujata Massey, and I love her books, and she also bases a lot of her books in Bombay. Kiran's written, Kiran Manral,
अभी
and
कंचना
Madhukar
दीदी से भी बात
Little,
हुई थी.
Kanchana. There's
हाँ.
so much. It makes you feel better. It just makes you feel like, you're part of a clan, and then you can write whatever you want
And
without any
anyway,
kind of
no
judgment.
people need to write crime fiction in India, women or men. And मैं बिल्कुल, I do not kind of make a difference between men and women. I believe in talent will shine through. Crime fiction has a very back seat in India. So I so much want more people to come into the fray, so that people start reading it. अभी तक वो slice of life, वो भगत जी की, and romance, it has to, and mythology. You need people to create that genre bigger, to get that
No, and Vish,
market.
UK or US में तो that griplit, the women who've created an entire category called griplit, they're driving the sales for crime.
Psychological
वो है ना, वो
thrillers are
Paula
totally
Hawkins or
dominated by women.
Lisa Jewell, ये सब, all these women.
Psychological thrillers are totally dominated by women, and they're doing a fantastic job. Actually, it has come to a level where you do not even see who the author is. It shouldn't matter to you who's written it. It's only when you start reading that you realize if it's in first person. मैंने दो चार बार पढ़ के देखा ये किसने लिखी है, and then you realize B.A. Paris is actually a woman. It didn't matter to me when B.A. Paris आदमी होने के कारण वो एक psychologically आपने सब B.A. Paris तो आदमी ही होगा, but when you start writing halfway through the thing you realize नहीं कुछ, this is not a man writing, because this can't be a man. It's not written the way it is, and you realize how brilliant that book therapist is. Belinda, मैं तो यही पढ़ रहा हूँ कि क्या बात कर, सारी लड़कियों की पढ़ी है यहाँ पे. B.A. Paris की दो पढ़ी है, बेलिंडा बॉर. मैं झूठ नहीं बोल रहा. ये देखो आप, बेलिंडा बॉर लड़की है, B.A. Paris लड़की है, B.A. Paris लड़की है. ये आदमी है, ये आदमी, दो आदमी है यहाँ पे. ये सारा आदमी है, ये वाला लड़का है. I wasn't making it up. It's just we haven't woken up to it. Now साफ बताएंगे आप. गाड़ी कैसे यूं कर आप बताएंगे.
ये सवाल जो था हेमंती का reminded me of an English honors question and the dialectics and इसका उसका and all of that. Simply क्या है,
इंग्लिश ऑनर्स किया है.
नहीं बताना ये चाह रहा हूँ कि representation जो है हर generation में वो change होता रहता है, और हमारे thankfully the representation of women have increased in the last 20-30 years. More women authors have stepped up and they are writing. various genres, right? It's I think one of my I was just looking up this quote from Maya Angelou, and she says that each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it, possibly without claiming it, she stands up for all women. And she, I mean, so as a woman writer, whether you write chick lit or whether you write horror or whether you write crime, the fact that you have taken that stand to write the book and create female characters or protagonists is a huge step in itself. And I think that has happened in the last 20 odd years, where we've seen books more by female writers. But having said that, what I keep talking about is the fact that even in India, we sort of have a tendency. The Indian reader has a tendency of being against Indian writers.
Oh yeah, surely.
We are very racist. We are very racist, which I
We are the
keep.
most racist race.
Yeah, Indians are the most racist. I mean, you talk any book club, any book group on Facebook, anything related, if you go and ask them what's the top 5 books you've read, they'll tell you of Pattinson and North and Ludlum and Archer. And I don't know, is there a cool
And the
factor
fifth
of
one will
saying,
be
oh, I
Anirban.
read these books?
हम
हाँ
लोग
जी?
fifth one will be Anirban. मैं और रिचा तब
नहीं,
साथ में हैं.
वो भी नहीं होगा, वो तो होगा ही नहीं. मैं बोल
नहीं,
कह रहा
I'm
हूँ कि
being
हमारे
honest with
हमारा
you,
एक रेसिस्ट तो है ही. We will discuss all of these international authors, but we will not support our own. And it's not that Indian authors write crap. We write very, very well. I mean, our books are very, very good. I feel stupid saying this also right now, but when you see on book clubs or all of that, सब अंग्रेज चले गए, वो इधर racist
No,
हो गए.
it's true. Most of the reading challenges, most of the the book clubs online, the bookstagram, you'll have a lot of them. I mean, you'll see it's sad, because literature is supposed to be all inclusive, sub parlo, it's all good. It depends on the kind of stories, right? But even yahan pe, it's about pretension and not giving other people a chance, not giving your own a chance. So
Yeah,
there's a
it's
lot
like
of that.
I met this girl who runs a blog, and she said the top 10 thriller books or something, or the top 5 books. I have top 5 books in her thriller books, top 5 thriller books. All of them were foreign writers. So then I said, "Bhai, I mean, madam, आप भूल गए क्या? Indian writers भी है thriller करके." Oh yes, I will do a separate list for Indians then. Why? पहले तो हमारा नाम आता ही नहीं है, उसके ऊपर तुम फिर से सेग्रीगेट करोगे, तो वो एक अजीब सा माहौल है.
But I think Anirban, also क्यों होता है ये? I have a feeling because when it comes to visibility, a lot of it is dictated in terms of वो जो whatever does the circles of the literary fiction is what ends up doing a lot of these rounds of award functions and this that and the other. तो वहां पे जो बाहर बात हुई, we've always been interested in we've been all very keen on what's popular बाहर, right? Always. तो वहां पे वो बात हुई and वो books clubs में यहाँ पे बात हुई, it's visible, it's going around in these circles, it's being nominated and all of that. So everybody just reaches out for what is the lowest hanging fruit कि सब लोग किस चीज के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. And then somehow if the West is accepting it, तो immediately वो यहाँ पे आके अच्छा let's read it. That's the buzz. That's
And
also what needs to happen.
my two bit is, and and this is a very candid, open forums, I have to say, वो Indian John Grisham जब शुरू में मेरे को बोला था तो मुझे अच्छा भी लगा था. I wouldn't decline it. मैं झूठ नहीं बोलूंगा. But if you actually think about it, why are we so stuck upon comparing any one of us to a foreign author? I'll just ask you a simple question. Who do you think, Haimanti, is the biggest star on the planet today? Biggest star in terms of films, in terms of his earnings, in terms of his appearances, in terms of his exposure, is Shah Rukh Khan. आपने कभी सुना है कि अमेरिका में बोले ब्रैड पिट इज अमेरिका शाहरुख खान? नहीं होता ना. तो why are we hell bent upon ये इंडिया की आगता क्रिस्टी है, ये इंडिया का ये है? अरे क्यों भाई? I am a writer. Honestly, मैं जो से भी छोटा मोटा हूँ, आपके बड़े होने से मैं तो छोटा नहीं होता. तो why do you have to compare me? वो एक बार किसी ने वो I'll tell you how it also happened. मतलब आज जब ओपनली बात चल रही है कि जब वो पहली लीगल थ्रिलर प्रेस वाले के पास गई तो उसने कहा ये लीगल थ्रिलर क्या होता है जी? उसने कहा जो जॉन ग्रीशम लिखता है, उसने कहा इंडिया जॉन ग्रीशम, वो उसने बना दिया. उसके बाद irrespective of how many times I say कि यार हटा दो ये मुझे नहीं चाहिए because I do not want to be compared. There is no reason to be compared to he's huge. So आप हर बार मुझे उससे कंपेयर करके छोटा ही दिखाना चाहते हो, बट ठीक है, क्या कर सकता हूँ मैं? I have tried to get rid of that tag so many times, but I also now understand and kind of accepted कि ये मेरी जिंदगी का एक हिस्सा बन चुका है. There is no reason for anyone of ये अगाथा क्रिस्टी है, वो कौन लिखता है, ट्रू क्राइम कौन लिखता है सर? आप हो.
ब्रैकेट में डाल देते, सब ब्रैकेट
अब
में डाल
ब्रैकेट में
देते.
डाल दिया. मैं लीगल थ्रिलर्स के बाद भी क्राइम लिखता हूँ, वो सिर्फ लीगल थ्रिलर लिखता है, वो बहुत बड़ा आदमी है. And I'm not even comparing myself to him. Why are you hell bent upon slotting me into a slot which does not exist? but वो आदत है. And that is why if you कहोगे इंडिया जॉन ग्रीशम, मतलब जॉन ग्रीशम तो कोई चीज है तो वो ही पढ़ना चाहिए. ये तो आए हैं, ये भी आए थे. दीदी आंखें मत खुजाओ आप.
जैसे जैसे आप आजकल के बच्चे जो है, नॉट बच्चे बट आजकल सभी वो लायनल मेसी, क्रिस्टियानो रोनाल्डो, ये वो करते रहते. सुनील छेत्री is the third, highest goal scorer. Why aren't we hero worshipping him?
Don't even know
Because he's one of our own, and yet we go after the Messis and the Ronaldos and the lot, but we don't even acknowledge Sunil Chhetri.
talent. Oh, local talent, local.
Yeah.
है. And
Anirban, sorry to cut you off, but I have a really a big question to Anirban. That your book is based on the sensational bank robberies, and the criminals confessed that they were inspired by Bollywood movie Dhoom. Do you think the crime narratives glorifying the criminal can be a serious influencer for crimes in the real world? Also, since you're involved in the entertainment industry in more than one ways, has any woman from the crime fiction shows you have worked upon inspired your writing or imagination?
Okay, so the first of all, no, crime in books and crime in movies actually don't increase crimes. Otherwise सब हम murderers होते सावधान इंडिया देख के या क्राइम पेट्रोल देख के.
दोनों तो लग
वो
रहे हैं
जिसको करना है क्राइम वो करेगा और कहीं से भी इंस्पिरेशन ले लेगा. इनफैक्ट the seed of Dhoom's modus operandi was a robbery gone wrong in Delhi by Charles Sovraj.
Oh.
Charles Sovraj booked a hotel room in the Taj to drill down into the jewelry store below, but the floor was so thick that he couldn't. So that was one failed attempt, which then became a Dhoom, which then got into Chalembara bank robbery, which again became a larger bank robbery in Punjab, where they dug a tunnel from one house right under the street going into the bank on the opposite side of the road, and 100 crores was stolen.
यूके में भी हुआ है.
हाँ जी,
यूके में भी हुआ है the great bank robbery. वो साथ की दुकान लेके they got into it and they actually got out and they were pardoned because Mountbatten had to pardon them. They had pictures of the princes.
Oh yes, it's there in the Crown as well.
Yeah.
So
they were asked to do it for a specific purpose, but they actually went beyond the brief.
yeah, they were told to retrieve the photographs
of Princess Margaret.
Yeah, from the lockers.
From the
So
lockers.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that it has, one odd incident might happen, but I don't think it influences real life. Yeah.
But Richa,
And what was the second part of your question?
If you haven't seen.
Any woman in your crime fiction show who has been an inspiration in your writing or imagination?
मत बोलो आज खाना नहीं मिलेगा. No, there's no one. No, I try to. So as a habit, I don't read true crime books because I don't want that to be make it, influence my writing and all of that. I stay away reading that genre completely. But I watch a lot of true crime because that fascinates me, and especially the mind of the criminal. Yeah, but I think one of the smartest criminals that I have ever encountered I wrote about her is someone called Cyanide Malika. One of the most smartest cookies that ever existed. And if you read The Deadly Dozen, you will know what I'm talking about. Her, the way she thought, the way she planned was completely crazy.
Mm.
Richa,
And
on one hand, we see the charming detective of Gwaltoli. Prachand, on the other hand, there is his wife, CFO Vidya, who is still always complaining about the wasted potential and their tepid life. There is a subtle balance between the characters of Vidya and Prachand. How do you see the power play between the two protagonists and the gender role they play?
See, ये जानी हुई बात है कि men and women are different in various capacities, but uh, I never wrote Vidya with a specific purpose in mind, to be herself and flex her muscle as a woman. It was there's something very congruent and symbiotic about the way they both are. And that is the way she has been written, and that is with the way he's been written. So honestly speaking, and here I'm not including the regular squabbles that most any relationship faces, but the way they are with each other, they balance out each other's energies, and their shortcomings are not flagged off, flagged in each other's faces. It's just about uh, you know being there for each other and complementing each other. And that and power play only comes, I guess, into play, so to speak, when there is a sort of anger or dissatisfaction, right? And when there are two people who are, I guess, working with each other, are being sensitive to each other's needs. So there is not much scope left for any kind of a power struggle, because they're very confident in their own skin. It's not that they're comparing each other's roles or trying to get the better of each other. So there's like a very quiet confidence in a relationship when you feel that as a person as well. And irrespective of their diverse backgrounds and how it is that they ended up together, they complement each other. And I have been received a lot of emails where people have written to me saying, oh, this is the perfect relationship. It almost, I wish it was, I had this in my life, and they're so wonderful together. It was almost like this gold standard of a relationship. And that's kind of sad, because this is, in reality, I wasn't trying to deify these characters. This is the way a relationship should be. You allow each other your own characteristics and personalities, and you give each other enough space, and there will not be any kind of power play, or there won't be any kind of a disparity in the way you feel towards each other. So that's the way it works with the both of them.
Vish, in your book, Cold Justice, the female protagonist, who is the judge and the convict, is an example of an empowered contemporary female character in crime fiction, which we were talking about. All the characters are so visual and well etched. I would like to know how important character development, as you have already talked about characters a lot. How much do you think that the revelation of the plot and the character development both are congruent to each other?
of course they are, because if the as I mentioned earlier, and I kind of might end up repeating myself, is the character that tells the story. So so even if it is s- stepping away from cold justice and character, and therefore into characterization, that is how anti-heroes are built. Because if you look at High Starters, which is also one of my books, sorry, I'm trying to sell myself, is you have to fall in love. Fall in love is kind of the extreme part of it. Basically, if you empathize with the character, whether it's Money Heist, the Spanish series, whether it is Heist Artist, or whether it is the Hindi film called Dawn. Now, if you look at Dawn, Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khan both play a negative role, but you empathize with them because the story, the narrative is theirs. So it's the character that runs the narrative. So it doesn't matter whether it's male or female. It doesn't matter whether they are good or bad. Once the character is etched in your mind as a reader or as a viewer, you are led through the story, through the narrative from their perspective. Now, even if largely it is negative because it's in a negative role like Dawn, Gabbar to totally negative tha because there was hero and there was a villain. But in an anti-hero kind of climate or environment, it is largely the character, and you if you believe in the character, which is the first 20, 40, 30 pages, or how the author or the writer kind of portrays them, man or woman, then you are with them and you would believe them till the end of time, even if they are wicked, even if they are evil, even if they are bad. And that's what the storytelling is all about in my mind. Ki character leads the story. So cold justice mein, she is the one who is accused of it, and there are reasons after reasons of why someone would be pointing fingers at her, but the fact remains that she has been caught red-handed with a weapon in her hand, and therefore it is practically impossible for the defense lawyer to work with her. And she being a judge should have known not to make those mistakes which she is now kind of, it's post facto that she's already fait accompli, made those mistakes, and that's how the story runs. But you have to believe in the character first for the story to move forward, and that's what I always propagate, and I will always do it till till the end of time. So it's the character that runs the story, and therefore a strong female character like Shilpa Singh in Cold Justice can run the story again all over again, and you would still believe her because she is in your mind, and she will do the right thing always, and that is how you believe, and that is how you will see her.
Thank you so much, Anirban, Richa, and Vish, for this very insightful conversation and for your time this evening. Tell me your story calls for submission on the story prompt, Devi. We hope to hear from you. Till then, stay well, stay happy, stay together. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
And
Thank
keep
you.
reading crime fiction.
And reading crime.
Keep reading.
And support small bookstores.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes.
Bye, guys.